It's November 2000. A 59-year-old woman in Ohio takes her morning pills. She swallows them with orange juice. She will be dead before dinner. The coroner will rule it a heart attack, natural causes, but the drug in her bloodstream is still on pharmacy shelves. It has been there for 5 years, and the agency that approved it still insists it's safe. This is not a story about evil corporations. This is a story about how the system designed to protect you works exactly as intended and kills exactly as predicted. Most people believe the FDA tests drugs. They don't. The FDA reviews studies paid for by the companies that make the drugs. The reviewers are overworked. The deadlines are fixed by law, and the definition of safe changes based on who is writing the check. The pharmaceutical industry spends $6 billion annually on FDA user fees. Those fees fund the salaries of the reviewers, which means the regulators work for the regulated. And when the studies show danger, the agency has 3 options: approve, delay, or demand more data. Delay costs money. Demanding data requires resources the agency doesn't have. So they approve, and people die. These are the 5 deadliest approvals. Not mistakes, not accidents. Systemic failures where the warning signs were visible, the mechanisms were broken, and the body count was inevitable.
In 1985, the FDA approved Seldane, terfenadine, the first non-drowsy antihistamine. Finally, allergy sufferers could work machinery without falling asleep. The drug made $800 million in its first year, but there was a problem. The drug blocked potassium channels in cardiac tissue. At high doses, it triggered fatal arrhythmias, the kind where your heart beats so fast it stops pumping blood. You die standing up. By 1990, doctors were reporting deaths. Young people, healthy hearts. One 39-year-old woman took Seldane with grapefruit juice. The juice boosted the drug concentration in her blood. She collapsed in a grocery store. The FDA received 400 adverse event reports, then 800. The manufacturer, hoaxed Marion Roussel, argued the deaths were rare, 1 in a million, acceptable risk for allergy relief. The FDA agreed. They kept it on the market for 8 more years. 8 years. By the time they pulled Seldane in 1998, the drug had killed at least 200 people, probably more. Most death certificates don't list the antihistamine. They list sudden cardiac death. The drug was replaced by a safer alternative. The FDA called it a success. In 1992, the FDA approved a combination diet therapy, fenfluramine and phentermine, Fen-Phen. The obesity epidemic needed solutions, and this one worked. You lost weight. The drug flooded your brain with serotonin. You felt full, but serotonin also thickens heart valves. The mechanism was known in rats. The FDA reviewers noted it in the file. They approved it anyway, because the rat data used higher doses. The logic, humans take less, therefore humans are safe. By 1996, doctors were performing emergency heart valve replacements on 30-year-olds. The valves were scarred and white and looked like they belonged in 80-year-old smokers. The Mayo Clinic identified the pattern. They published a study. The FDA read it. The agency waited 6 months. 6 months while 6 million people took the drug. 6 months while doctors performed hundreds of valve surgeries. When the FDA finally recalled Fen-Phen in 1997, they estimated 30% of users had heart damage. That's 1.8 million people with permanently damaged hearts. The manufacturer, Wyeth, set aside $21 billion for lawsuits. It was the largest product liability settlement in history. The FDA changed nothing about its approval process.
Warner Lambert developed Rezulin in 1996, a diabetes drug. Diabetes destroys livers, so the company argued that liver damage in clinical trials was probably just the disease progressing, not the drug. The FDA medical officer reviewing Rezulin was Dr. John Garigian. He was skeptical. He found liver enzyme elevations in 8% of patients. He recommended rejection. Warner Lambert complained to the FDA management. Dr. Garigian was removed from the review. Rezulin was approved in January 1997. Within months, patients were dying of acute liver failure. Their organs liquefied. The first death came in March, then April, then June. By November, the FDA had reports of 12 liver failures failures. They required a label change. The warning was buried on page 3 of the insert. No one read it. By 1999, Rezulin had killed 90 people. The UK banned it. The FDA kept it available. They argued that American diabetics needed options. Another 30 died. In March 2000, after 391 liver failures and 63 confirmed deaths, the FDA finally recalled the drug. Dr. Garigian had been right. He had also been fired. Warner Lambert was acquired by Pfizer. The FDA reviewers who overruled him received performance bonuses. GlaxoSmithKline had a blockbuster in 1999. Avandia, rosiglitazone. It lowered blood sugar by making cells more sensitive to insulin. It also caused heart attacks. The company knew. They ran a study called Record. They hid the data. In 2007, cardiologist Dr. Stephen Nissen analyzed 42 clinical trials that GSK had buried. Avandia increased heart attack risk by 43%. It caused 47,000 excess cardiac deaths. He published in the New England Journal of Medicine. The FDA held hearings. The advisory committee voted. 12 members said withdraw the drug. 10 said keep it with warnings. 2 abstained. The FDA sided with the minority. Avandia stayed on the market. The reason? Withdrawing it would confuse patients. The logic? If the FDA admitted they made a mistake, people might stop trusting the FDA. Better to let the deaths continue. Better to let 47,000 people die than admit error. In 2010, the Senate Finance Committee released internal emails. GlaxoSmithKline executives had written, "We need to defend Avandia even though it causes heart failure." The FDA finally restricted access. They didn't ban it. They just made doctors fill out paperwork. Avandia is still sold today in the United States. It is banned in Europe.
This is the worst. This is the one that proves the system isn't broken. It's working perfectly. Vioxx was Merck's COX-2 inhibitor, a painkiller that didn't upset stomachs. Approved in 1999, Merck ran a study called Vigor. They compared Vioxx to naproxen. The results showed Vioxx caused 5 times as many heart attacks. Merck's scientists wrote an internal memo. The cardiovascular events are clearly there. The CEO, Ray Gilmartin, was informed. Merck's solution? They blamed naproxen. They claimed naproxen was protective, not that Vioxx was dangerous. They hired ghostwriters to publish papers in medical journals disputing the heart risk. They paid doctors $5,000 each to prescribe it. The FDA added a warning to the label in 2002. A warning, not a recall. By then, 25 million Americans had taken Vioxx. The FDA's Bruin safety officer, Dr. David Graham, later testified that Vioxx killed 60,000 people. That's 20 times the death toll of 9/11. Merck knew. The FDA knew. And they kept selling it for 4 more years. Merck finally withdrew Vioxx in 2004, not because of the FDA, but because a new study proved the heart risk was undeniable. They paid $4.85 billion in lawsuits. They made $11 billion in sales. Profit. Dr. Graham testified before Congress. The FDA is incapable of protecting America from unsafe drugs. He was demoted to a basement office. The FDA issued a statement saying Vioxx was an unfortunate anomaly. It was not an anomaly. It was the system.
5 drugs, 5 approvals, tens of thousands of deaths, and the pattern is identical. Industry-funded studies, ignored warnings, regulatory capture, delayed recalls, and no consequences for the approvers. The FDA has never fired a reviewer for approving a deadly drug. They have fired reviewers for delaying approvals. The incentive structure rewards speed over safety. User fees reward cooperation over scrutiny. And when the deaths pile up, the agency protects itself, not the patients. You believe the FDA stands between you and dangerous drugs. It does not. It stands between pharmaceutical companies and liability. It is a stamp, not a shield, and the ink is red. The woman in Ohio died in 2000. Her name was Roberta. She took Vioxx for knee pain. She had no history of heart disease. The FDA kept Vioxx on the shelf for 4 more years. They knew. They always know. And they will do it again. Because the next drug is already in review. The studies are already paid for. The deadlines are already set. And the mechanism that killed Roberta is still running. Perfectly oiled, perfectly deadly.